Hi, I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Melina. We connected through another event that was going on called Embrace that a mutual friend of ours, Karen Skidmore, organised, which is talking about how we should embrace and celebrate menopause and what comes after menopause. And I just knew from when I heard you speaking that I wanted to have you on to talk about your ideas in love, life and leadership. So I'm delighted you've joined us today. Lovely to have you here. Do you want to just tell people a little bit about you and your journey and why we've ended up talking today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. No, I'm so excited to be here. When we first connected, we had a conversation and it just was so exciting. And so, I mean, I run my own business, have been in business for 16 years, quite a long time. Started off straight sales and marketing, pretty much sales and marketing, coaching, training, worked with bricks and mortar businesses, plumbers, electricians, had a great time. But then I also started on a transformational journey. It wasn't really spiritual back then, more transformational. And I just loved it and wanted to bring more of that into the coaching and the work that I was doing, and slowly started to do that. And then I think I just had a mental, no, not a nervous breakdown, but a burnout. I completely burnt out. I'd been pushing and pushing. And I did a training course in the States, but I'd had enough of all the sales and marketing and the trainings that we teach, and particularly teaching people around for coaching, around what's the pain point, pushing on that pain. And if you do X, you'll get Y. And when I look back at the clients that I coached and supported, they did some of the things I recommended, but most of them didn't do a lot of what I recommended. But what I gave them was confidence, and what they just, I don't know, it was like they embraced another way. So they were doing more of what they were used to be doing rather than the new marketing that I was teaching them. But they just get better results. And so I felt like I couldn't teach the whole old style marketing and sales. And that, coupled with just being exhausted from, I think, molding myself to other people's expectations of me, I gave up. I'm quite dramatic. So I did it in quite a big way. I told everyone I was stopping online marketing completely, retired all my products. And I had about 5 trainings on sales and marketing, retired all of those, and started exploring. I did lots of courses. I say I had a spiritual awakening that lasted 3 years. So it was this kind of like dance with the divine, I think. But over that time, as I was getting better acquainted with myself, seeing what made me tick, really exploring what I love to do and wanted to do, whether I even wanted to be in business at all, what would that look like, and just really allowing things to flow. I ended up working with Karen, who you mentioned. So I'm her senior coach in one of her programs. And that got me back into the sales and marketing. And I saw just not only how much knowledge I had, but how much experience I'd had I'd taken my business to 6 figures, but it didn't give me the joy and the satisfaction and the freedom that I thought it was. The same patterns were still playing out. And that's one of the reasons I ditched everything. But then when I was back into this business environment, and how all the transformational work and the spiritual work that I'd been on was able to bring all of that into it, and see just how much I loved it, because it's fun. I think marketing and sales is fun, and loads of people struggle with it and I think they struggle because they're trying to fit themselves into someone they're not. So they're kind of performing, and it feels icky. So I created it's much more than an online program. I think of it more as a movement called Sacred Selling, whereby it encompasses not just the practical nuts and bolts of selling, but the spiritual and transformational, and using your business as a way simply to express yourself creatively and to see the spiritual journey that you're on, to bring that into business, to kind of see how that is, like, I call it like a dance with life. So it's a dance with your business. So rather than it be separate, which is what we tend to do, we have our spiritual journey that we kind of try and keep secret because it's a bit woo-woo. We have our family life, then we have our business life, and it doesn't seem to be they don't seem to gel. So, and on a call I was on earlier, people were saying they behave differently depending on whether they're with their family or whether they're with business. So my personal journey has been the one Melina everywhere. So there isn't this wearing masks, showing up as somebody different, going through, it's like layers in your head, thinking, can I really say this? Is this okay to share? Should I say? And because that's what's exhausting. Yeah. And simply just be me, show up as me, and start to be I guess a bit more risque with friends and family, and say some of the things I truly believe rather than keep quiet.
That's why when we first connected, and I first heard you talking, and we were sharing some ideas, that all of those things really spoke to where I guess I was at my journey at the time, in terms of, building my business, which is a business that I absolutely love. But some of it just felt icky, the how do I put this out there? And I was talking to a lot of people who were probably where you were before you went on that journey, was you must do it this way, and this is how you do it, and this is the funnel selling that you should follow, and this is how you should put yourself out there. And I was just like, do you know what? There's another way. I know there's another way, and that doesn't feel like me. As you said there, the finding the pain points with people. I was like, I don't want to find the pain points with people. That just doesn't feel right for me. And I know it works, and I know people, it can work, but it just doesn't feel right for me. And I think I was writing notes down so I'd remember what you were saying there. But the things that's really stood out to me is, that molding yourself to fit something else. We all do it so much in our lives, in our leadership, in our businesses, in everything, all these different masks, all these different types of people that we show up as, and it's exhausting. And it's not what you're doing, it's the fact that you're trying to do it differently for all these different people in your life. So that really spoke to me when we first spoke. And the idea of exploring, just playing and going exploring, just seems like such fun, right? Which is a lot of the freedom that I think we want, but we get to these businesses that we build in the way that we're told we should build them, and then go, I still don't really feel that, as you said.
Yeah, and I think for me, I've always done that. So and I wasn't aware of this at the time. It was only when I look back on my journey, and the things that both worked and I had the best fun were the things that I didn't know how they, like, the way I would express it was like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm going to have fun doing it. So and my life kind of fell into my lap. So I studied Latin American studies at university because I'd watched a program about Machu Picchu. I thought, whoa, I want to go there. Now, I was looking at doing languages, so it wasn't totally just out of nowhere, but it was like, should I do Chinese, Russian, Spanish, like all of these? And then I saw this program and thought, I want to go there, because you got a year out as part of the degree course. And then when I look at it from a marketing and business perspective, all the things that were successful for me were the ones where I don't know how this promotion is going to go, but let's just have fun. And it was always successful. Whereas when I'd had some success and tried to put it on rinse and repeat, this idea of passive income, it just fell flat. Either I wouldn't get my butt off the gear and create it, or I wouldn't get the same results. So this euphoria I felt when I launched it the first time round, it was all exciting. I did it again, and I got like 6 people as opposed to 100 people. Like that is the difference I'm talking about, with the exact same copy, so the exact same marketing message. So what's the difference? And I think pretty much it's my energy, because at heart I'm an explorer. I love to step into the unknown. I know some people can find that a little bit frightening, but I always know that I've always known that I'm safe. So when it comes to sales in particular, you kind of have a framework rather than a rigid step by step. So it's good to have the framework. So that was one of the things that I'd dissed on my journey, that, oh, you've just got to show up and talk to people, and if they want to work with you, they'll work with you. Ignoring the fact that actually I did that, but I also invited people to take the next step. There were things that I was doing unconsciously because I've been doing them for 15 years that if you're just starting out, then you're not necessarily aware of it. So it's having that. I don't know if I've shared this with you the last time we spoke, but like in a house, you have the basic structure of like 4 walls, a window, and a door. And then inside you can create it as you want. It can be muted, it can be bright as anything. So whatever it is that you want to create.
Yeah.
And that's the way I think of selling in particular and growing a business.
Yeah. Which I loved when we first spoke and when I looked at the program, because like you say, it's that, you know, with so many things in life, we tend to ditch things, you know, completely and go, well, you know, that doesn't work, right? And now I'm going to go off on this journey, which is partly when we're very creative and we like to explore, can happen. You know, I think you're a bit like me. It's like shiny things. Whoa, that's exciting. Let's go there. And then we leave what we know so well behind us. And what I love about what you've done is bring those two things together, and all those inherent skills that you knew you had as a marketeer and someone who knew about sales training, and went, okay, I get just doing that doesn't work. And I get that just showing up doesn't work. But if I draw the two together, bow, in the middle, there's the magic, right? Which is just, yeah, it speaks to what I love, and what I've found in my own way works for me. So a bit like you, when I was building my business last year, I just went, you know what? I'm just going to do what I love. I'm just going to do what makes me feel like I'm showing up as I want to show up, you know, and bringing in some of my creative things. Now, I probably could have done with more of the framework, but you know what? For that year, the best thing for me to do was just to have fun and explore it. And actually, I think it's kind of worked, right? But then it's going, okay, but what can I bring to it that's going to enhance it and accelerate it, but not take the joy and the fun and the freedom out of it? Within the program that you have, what are some of the what are some of those magic bits that you find that you know, when you're coaching people on it, you can see their eyes just light up because you've put those two things together and created that bit of magic?
The thing that lands the most is seeing how our patterns will play out in a sales basis. So we often have like a fear of like rejection comes up. Like there's this fear of when people say that we don't want them to say no, and then we take it personally. We think it's us, and usually that's because we have some kind of story. Like I had this really deeply. It's like I'm not wanted. Like stems from my childhood. My dad leaving when I was very young. And often for others, it's like I'm not good at them. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for what they want. And so when this plays out in a business setting, we hear no, and we think, oh, it's us, we've done something wrong. So we look to find out what. So typically we would look to see, what can I say? What else can I do? And I would look to see what the hurts are. So one of the things that I always encourage people to do is run towards the trigger. So anything that kind of hurts or triggers you in any way, it's unpick it, dig deeper, look to see, well, what is it specifically about those triggers? And when I kind of, sacred selling was a long time coming. And I remember putting things out. So I tried all sorts of different programs. One of them was called Total Transformation. I did a few online events like the Magical Day in Wonderland and different things. And I would offer these things out, and going into it, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm completely fine with whatever shows up. I'm just going to put my heart and soul in. And if no one takes up the offer, it's fine. No one took up the offer. And I remembered being utterly distraught and devastated. And even though I thought I would be completely fine, in that moment I wasn't. Yeah. But I had to do some more healing and releasing, to the point where I'd put something out, no one would sign up. This sounds like I put loads of things out and no one signs up. But I knew I was on a different journey, and that actually I could put things out, no one would show up, and I'd laugh about it. And then I started putting things out and got a phenomenal response. So when I launched Sacred Selling, like I had 10 people enrolled right from the get-go, whereas had like a year before, I was putting things out and everyone was saying no. from unexpected places. So we do that inner work, and magic shows up on the outside as if by magic. And I think a lot of people want to change the outside world, and actually if we change ourselves, then magic happens. But often we know that, and what I see a lot is we know this intellectually, but when we're in the moment, we're not living and breathing it. So what I would do myself was, every time because I would get frustrated when I would see these amazing mentors on the surface, and I've been in a lot of like behind the scenes with people, and I know it's not like that behind the scenes. And so I would see like the front and the back, and I would get annoyed. And then I recognized the reason I was getting annoyed was because I wasn't sharing, I wasn't putting myself out there, I wasn't writing, I wasn't doing all of that. So rather than be bitchy and horrid and point the finger out, I looked at myself to see, what am I not doing? Where am I not showing up? Where am I don't know, letting myself down, or whatever it happened to be. So I think like a lot of that is at the heart, because it's this mixture of the inner and the outer. So sometimes it's actually a case of doing less inner work, and actually it's a case of picking up the phone. It's a case of sending emails out. It's a case of inviting people to have a conversation with you. Because we using the inner as a means to detract from just putting on your walking boots and taking the steps. It's like you're not gonna run a marathon if you don't train, and you're not going to train just by sitting down and being very zen-like and imagining yourself at the finish line.
And I think that's something else that comes back to this kind of the extremes, isn't it? Is people kind of, they either think, well, I've got to be out there and pushing hard and doing all of the things that I need to do, or I sit back and do nothing and the world will just come to me, right? Which is, the extremes. But actually the reality is, as you say, is actually it's the balance between the two, but it's the energy we put behind it. Last time we spoke, you shared a lovely story about the Embrace, was it, I can't remember whether it was called a festival or what they tagged it as, but that Karen ran because actually it got pulled together quite quickly. The intention and the energy behind it was really clear as to what they wanted to achieve. Nikki and Karen, Nikki Williams was also involved in it. And I said to you, oh, I'm sure that behind the scenes it was all chaos, but it looked amazing. And you just sort of went, no, it wasn't, actually, because the energy and intention behind it was true. So it all came together. But that's not to say you all didn't work incredibly hard to make it happen for those 3 days that it was on. But actually, once you were in it and it just flowed, and it was, incredible what you guys pulled together. But I love that story because it gave a good example of that kind of what you were saying there about, we get this image on, social media, but we know a lot of the time behind the scenes that's not the truth, and we know that we can't really prove it, or we're not in it, but we kind of know it, and that energy comes across.
Yeah, it definitely does. And so for me, there's been a fear of showing up. I've no idea why. But like being seen. So I'm quite introverted, so I actually have to force myself, except when I'm showing up as a conversation, I don't have any issues at all. But I recognize that the people that I was drawn to, and you embody this beautifully, it's like people are themselves, and you can tell, you can feel it energetically, you can feel it. And I had to look at myself and say, well, people are going to feel that about you. And often people would tell me, oh, I like your energy, and I'd look at them as if they were a bit crazy. It's like, but I recognize that now, that you can sense how real someone is being. So it's if you read some of my blogs, I've written, you can kind of see my journey through my blog posts over the years. And one of the themes that I kept writing about was, I struggle to write. And it was this whole idea of a blog post needs to look like X, Y, and Z, beginning, middle, and an end. And I struggled with the conclusions. Whereas when I just sat in flow and allowed myself to simply write, it was effortless. And a beautiful post would appear in like 40 minutes or so. But what I found challenging was then I would then think, well, what about that person if they're going to read it? Because they're going to think that their journey's not like that. And I suddenly thought, no, you're writing for the people who want to read, not the 80% of people who it's going to support, not the 20% who are going to pick holes, or find faults. Because
and we do, it's something actually, because I still work very much within recruitment, and so I still do, as much as the other stuff that I do, I still do quite a lot of recruitment coaching and sales coaching. And one of the things, and it speaks to this, what you're saying about your blog post there, is, I say to them, don't assume what you're who you're talking to or who you're selling to. Don't assume what they want or don't want. You just need to, you need to tell them what you have. You need to show them the value and the worth and the process and what you're going to do. But you make too many assumptions, and that's what stops us. As you say, it stops you writing a blog because you're worried about what people are going to read. Well, that's not your responsibility.
Well, in marketing, though, one of the things you're trained to do is to find out what your clients want and give it to them. So you're supposed to kind of write in such a way that they want to hear. And so I had my marketing training on and my spiritual training on, and they were clashing with each other. Whereas I think, because if you're not in tune with yourself and what you want to create, and you try and squish yourself into this straitjacket of what your clients want, then you're never going to have a productive business. Whereas if you tune into what you want and then align that, so a lot of it is about, I guess it is about the messaging and how you put it across. So, for example, I used to live in Mid Wales. I live in Shropshire now, but I used to live kind of like in the back of Beyond. And I would run VIP days in person at a local hotel near to where I lived. And you could say, well, no one's going to travel to Mid Wales. It's like 5.5 hours from London to spend time with you. Or you can use the objection as a reason why and say, you're out of your day-to-day, you're in the middle of the countryside, it's relaxed, it's chilled. And not once did I have any objection to coming, or rarely. I guess I probably occasionally did, but rarely. Most people just showed up. So it's kind of aligning the message with what you want to create with how you present it to your clients.
And for someone to believe that actually that is a benefit, the fact that they're going away, they're getting away from their norm, they're committing that time and intention to go and spend with you, that's all part of their journey to be with you. And I think that's something that the pain versus the pleasure kind of argument in marketing. I love that idea. It's one thing I really struggle with, that write it so that people feel pain and then they'll have to come to you because they don't know any other way to be. Whereas the idea of turning that sort of people won't want to into a beautiful invitation just seems to me that I could do that. I could suggest to people that wouldn't it be wonderful if you took a little journey out somewhere you've never been before, in the beautiful Welsh rolling hills, this wonderful hotel that has all these lovely things, and you spend some time with, just talking about what's important to you and what's going on in your world and your business. That's like a beautiful film or a book, welcoming people in, rather than this, if you don't do this, you are never going to succeed.
It's because that's not true either, you see. It's like there's a path for you. You can't actually get it wrong. But we actually run an Airbnb. It's just we've got an annex in the bottom of our garden that we've let out. And even before that, I started to see like hotels when we're booking hotels and when you're going on holiday, you're not looking for you're not going to solve a problem. You're going to have a beautiful, relaxing holiday and a break. And I certainly wanted to sell my own coaching and things like that. That's how I bought. I didn't buy because things were really bad. I bought because I could see so much potential and it was exciting. Whereas if it's, and so that's just, I know it doesn't appeal to everybody. Some people might need it be really bad, but then you're still looking for that positive journey that you're going on. So Yeah, I feel quite passionately about it, actually.
And I think what's lovely about that is, that comes from you. Like you say, you've looked at yourself and gone, why do I buy? What makes me want to do things in the world? And actually the pain points don't work for me. And I'm a bit the same. For me, it's, is it fun? Is it playful? Is it creative? Is it pleasurable? Like you say, those lovely hotels you look at and they paint this beautiful picture for you. That's kind of where I want to go with my own experiences. So I want to create that for my clients. And those are the kind of clients I want to work with. And that's that. I think the other, thing that you go, when you go through this journey yourself, is to be clear on, yes, I don't want the 80% who won't like that, but actually they're not the 80% or 20% or whatever percentage it is. They're not the people that I want to work with. And they're not the people who are going to enjoy working with me. And I think that's alignment thing, isn't it? I don't have to appeal to everyone. I don't have to appeal to the people who would respond to a pain point. I don't have to work with the people who are feeling like there's no pleasure in life at the moment for them. They might not be my people. And I think that's part of this journey of how we show up in the world. And looking to ourselves is a really good start. A really good place, but we're kind of told it's not. We always have to look to our customer.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I just don't agree, because I think there's, and I look at the big business brands. So I look at something like Costa Coffee or Starbucks, and if you'd ask customers whether they'd spend £3 on a cup of coffee and go out and drink it, people would have said no way, no way. And yet it's part of everyday life now. So if you look at the big innovators like Henry Ford, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. And they led the way because they had a vision and they could see things other people didn't. And that's what I kind of see and want for people. You're like leading in your business. So it's like, what speaks to you? Because there will be enough people like you that want to do it. And even if it takes a few years to get off the ground, that the learning on that journey will be huge. I think a lot of people, and I was doing this myself, is like using your business to create the life you want rather than creating the life you want through your business. So it's living the life you want now and bringing your business on board rather than, well, I have to do this in my business now in order to have free time in the future. And actually, one of my clients said that was a big shift for her in having more free time in particular. So,
yeah, which, my mantra is live the life you love. And, started by saying about those different boxes that we put things in. But actually, if you're on this journey to run a business, as your vehicle for making money, my belief is, as you say, you have to look at it holistically. And if you are shape-shifting yourself into your business every day, then you are never going to live a life that you love. It doesn't matter how much money you make out of it. It doesn't matter how much success you have, how big it gets. You will not be really, truly living a life that you love. And as you say, the journey, the evolution is part of that. The fact that you can come on and share your journey of those, different aspects that you went to and then came out of, and then, like you say, quite dramatically went, I'm not doing that anymore, which I love. I love that kind of, dramatic, because actually that's setting a really clear intention, which is, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not going to be that shape anymore. And I recognize that looking back over my career, I have, as I look back, I can almost feel my body kind of contorting into these different shapes, these different places, these different people, these different masks that I put on, and think, how did I ever even be there? Because now it just doesn't feel right. Whereas whether my business is as successful as I would like it to be right now, whether I live the life I love every single day, no, that's the reality of it. But I'm not shape-shifting anymore.
But that's never going to happen either. This is a fairy tale. We've taught from a very young age, live happily ever after. Well, it's never like that, and we would hate it if it was. I remember reading a book once, a Just Good Thing Happens in this book, and it was like I couldn't wait for it to finish, because with storytelling, we have to see the hero going through from trauma to challenge, from trauma to triumph, whatever it is. So in day-to-day life, there's going to be, in business, ups and downs. It's a roller coaster, which is what we secretly love. But we have this idea that one day that we'll live happily ever after. And I crave that happily ever after for such a long time, until I started to recognize, I started to see those patterns playing out and how it all is. And I mean, they introduced a lot of that. So
yeah, and it's funny that you say about the kind of roller coaster idea. You know, it's funny as we talk about that, like everyone's, 2020 has been a real roller coaster of a year, and yet most people love going on roller coasters. You know, because they love the thrill of being at the top and go, I'm not a big fan myself, but, you know, they love that thrill of going up and down and knowing that, you know, that feeling when you go down is actually then you're going to go up again, how it's going to feel at the bottom. But yet, like you say, we kind of try and even it out. So we're just like this, but that really don't
we don't really want that. That's not what we really want. And so I use storytelling quite a lot in the sacred selling, because when we can see that our business journey is a bit like a story, there's going to be ups and downs, and that's what fuels us. That's really what nourishes us. We relish challenges. So for example, I've done a lot of open water swimming. So I've swam the Solent, and I swam Loch Ness as part of a group. I didn't swim the whole thing. And that was exciting. If it was just like swim 20 laps of a pool, that wouldn't be a challenge at all. But the journey I went on, and there were moments that I wanted to give up, not whilst I was swimming itself, but in the training leading up to it. That's what we know that's going to be it, but we're doing that because we want to. And so I think the more we can embrace that in business, so it's about enjoying the journey and enjoying that experience of being in business, rather than our business being this magical line in the sand. When we get it to a certain level, then we can live the life of our dreams. It's like, no, because most of the time when I ask people what they want, they can start to integrate it now. They generally want to be have more time with loved ones, go more on holidays, or go to the beach, or do different things. And there is no reason why they can't create those feelings today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we always make it about that future point, don't we? But actually, if you're clear on what you want, just start doing it now. You know, it's something I do a lot with my clients is, you know, okay, you've told me what you want it to be like. What about if we have one of those days today? You know, so I did this exercise with a client of mine recently and said to her, you know, let's go forward a year. What would be your perfect day? What would it look like? What would you be doing? Who'd be around you? And she painted this beautiful picture of this day. And at the end, I said, right, one day next week, that's the day you're going to have, you know, and do whatever you need to do to create that day, to give it that content. But it's next week, you know, and she's so excited about the exercise, you know, and created that kind of idea of, I'm about to swim Loch Ness, you know, that adventure at the end. She's training for that by bringing that into her every day. So I think it's fascinating how we look at these things. And as you say, I'm thinking of a film. I can't remember whether it was a film or whether it was a Sesame Street episode where it's Christmas every day. Someone wishes that it was Christmas every day. And of course, then when Christmas is every day,
it's really boring.
Horrendous. Can you imagine? Just horrendous. And that's often, and then of course what happens is when we get there, when we get to where we thought we wanted to get to with our business and everything, once we're there, then we go, oh, actually, this isn't what I wanted. You know, and then we're back in that roller coaster again. So why not create a wonderful roller coaster of design that we love, with all the different bits in it and the scenery and the pictures we're going to look at that we want, and enjoy it along the way. It's much more fun, including how we go out there and show our business to the world. So just to wrap up, really, just tell us a little bit about how people can come and talk to you, you know, how they can connect with you, and you know, perhaps what kind of people do you feel this would attract or would work with?
The people, it's if you're on a spiritual journey and you're running a business and you want to integrate both, so rather than separating it out, probably more so than needing to sell, but it's really that integration between, like, a business that you love and makes profit and gives back. And you can find me, either follow me on Facebook, Melina Abbott will find me. I am on LinkedIn, but as well. My website is melinaabbott.com. So I've got quite an unusual name, so you can just Google me and I'll show up. But if you go to my website, then you can do a journey with me for free. Sign up for that. It's a 9-day sacred selling journey, which is rather fun.
Yes.
So yeah,
I'm on the journey. So go and find Melina, because it's and I would say don't let the word spiritual scare you off, because I know for some people that word kind of has this scary connotation of what that means. And I think you and I probably agree on this. For me, there is some woo-woo stuff that I love that other people may not be into, right? But for me, it's aligning with who I really am. That's the journey for me. And you can call it spiritual, whatever you want to call it. But I think some people find that word a little bit off-putting. But actually,
I used to. It's only probably recently that I've embraced it. And people were drawn to me because I was so practical and down to earth and grounded. That's been commented on. So it's... I think it's recognizing that there's so much in the unknown, like there's so much magic that can show up when we can embrace it. And you are the most, we all are, like whoever's listening, you are the most magical being. And recognizing that and seeing that, and falling in love with yourself, that is just exquisite. And I guess that's the journey through sales and your business. It's like such fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were saying that there about people come to you because you're very practical and grounded, and and someone reflected this to me actually, and I love the idea of it, because it brings in the kind of spiritual, it brings in the magic. Is if you think about a tree growing, they are deeply rooted, they're in the ground, they're connected to nature, they're connected to all these other cycles that feeds them, they're connected with the seasons. But actually there's magic every year. They blossom, they grow leaves, they shed them, they grow them again, but actually they are still very solid, grounded, practical, strong, and all those things that we normally think about. But around it, there's all just this magic that happens. So I'd like to reflect back that you are a beautiful blossoming tree that I see there for all of those reasons. And it's been absolutely lovely talking to you today, as ever. And I know that our paths will be crossing many, many times over the next however long. But yes, please go and check Melina out, because it's a really interesting journey to go on, one that I'd really recommend. So thank you very much for your
thank you so much for having me. This has just been such fun. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm gonna let it shine.